version of events. Your responses become shorter, calmer. Sometimes there is silence. And in that silence, they feel something destabilizing. It is not just that you are upset. It is that you are no longer participating in the emotional exchange that fed the dynamic. Energetically, they sense distance. You are no longer leaning forward, you are leaning back. Your body language shifts, your tone flattens. The arguments that once lasted hours now end in minutes. You are no longer trying to win, you are trying to detach. This is the moment their anxiety spikes because control is measured by reaction. When reactions disappear, they experience a loss of psychological grip. It can show up in their eyes, a flash of panic quickly covered by irritation. Their voice may sharpen. They may suddenly intensify affection or escalate criticism. The shift feels dramatic because internally they are scrambling. What makes this moment powerful is that it is driven by your internal boundary. You may not have announced it. You may not have made a scene, but your energy communicates what words no longer need to, and that quiet withdrawal of emotional fuel is what signals to them that something fundamental has changed. The extinction burst is one of the most misunderstood phases in a narcissistic dynamic, and it is also one of the most intense. When a manipulative behavior stops producing results, it does not quietly disappear. It spikes, it surges. It becomes louder, sharper, and more dramatic. This escalation is not random emotion. It is a last-ditch effort to regain control. For a long time, their tactics worked. Guilt made you apologize. Silence made you anxious. Anger made you comply. Intermittent affection made you hopeful. Every strategy was reinforced because it produced a reaction. In behavioral terms, what gets rewarded gets repeated. And what suddenly stops being rewarded triggers panic. When you detach and stop responding the way you used to, their nervous system registers a threat. The usual lever they pull no longer moves you. That is when the extinction burst begins. You may see explosive anger that feels disproportionate to the situation. You may see frantic texting, repeated calls, dramatic accusations, or sudden declarations of love. Sometimes they manufacture emergencies or create chaos just to force engagement. The key here is intensity. The behavior becomes amplified because internally they are thinking, "This worked before. I just need to do more of it." If criticism used to destabilize you, they criticize harder. If jealousy used to provoke you, they flaunt someone new more aggressively. If vulnerability once softened you, they suddenly cry in ways they never did before. To you, it feels shocking, even frightening. It may make you question whether you misjudged them. But the escalation is actually evidence that your boundary is working. The spike happens precisely because the old reinforcement cycle has been interrupted. And if you hold steady through that surge, the pattern eventually loses power. Because control cannot survive without reaction. The smear campaign is not about anger. It is about reputation management. When a narcissist realizes they can no longer control you directly, they shift their focus to controlling how you are perceived. If they cannot dominate the private narrative, they attempt to dominate the public one. This is strategic, not impulsive. In the earlier stages of the relationship, they often gathered information about you under the guise of intimacy. Your fears, your insecurities, your past mistakes, your family tensions. At the time, it felt like bonding. Later, that information can become ammunition. The smear campaign frequently begins subtly. A comment here, a suggestion there, "I'm worried about them. They've been struggling. I tried so hard." It is framed as concern, not attack. The goal is twofold. First, they protect their image. They cannot tolerate being seen as the one who was left rejected or exposed. Second, they attempt to isolate you. If mutual friends start questioning your stability or character, you are forced into defense mode, and defense is engagement. What makes smear campaigns so destabilizing is that they invert reality. The behaviors you endured may be projected onto you. If they were volatile, suddenly you are described as dramatic. If they were unfaithful, you become untrustworthy. Projection allows them to offload shame and maintain superiority. There is often a rehearsed quality to their storytelling, the same phrases repeated, the same carefully selected examples. It is less about truth and more about consistency. If enough people hear the same narrative, doubt begins to spread. For the person targeted, this can feel like a second betrayal. Not only did the relationship fracture, but now your character feels under attack. Understanding that this maneuver is about preserving their fragile self-image can help you avoid being pulled into a reactive spiral that only fuels the narrative further. Sudden victimhood and public pity plays are among the most confusing final maneuvers because they can look so convincing on the surface. When a narcissist senses that you are no longer emotionally accessible, they often pivot from dominance to vulnerability. But this vulnerability is strategic. It is curated. It appears at the exact moment their control is threatened. You may notice a dramatic shift in tone. The same person who minimized your feelings now speaks softly about how deeply they have been hurt. The one who dismissed your concerns now tells others they feel abandoned and misunderstood. Tears may appear in settings where there is an audience. Stories become selective, highlighting your reactions but omitting the pattern that led to them. This tactic serves several purposes. First, it recruits sympathy. Pity can be a powerful social currency. When others feel sorry for them, it reinforces their identity as the wronged party. Second, it pressures you psychologically. If mutual friends, family members, or colleagues begin approaching you with concern about how much you have hurt them, you are subtly nudged back into the role of caretaker. There is also an internal function. By framing themselves as the victim, they avoid confronting their own behavior. Accountability would require self-reflection, and self-reflection threatens the fragile self-image they work so hard to maintain. Victimhood becomes a shield against shame. For you, this phase can be disorienting. You may question your decision. You may feel guilt rising, especially if you are naturally empathetic. That guilt is precisely what the performance is designed to activate. The key difference between genuine remorse and a pity play is consistency. Real accountability is quiet and sustained. Strategic victimhood appears suddenly, intensifies quickly, and fades once control is restored or the audience moves on. Love bombing relapse attempts are one of the most seductive final moves because they target your hope. When a narcissist senses that you are emotionally withdrawing for good, they may suddenly transform into the person you always wished they would be. The affection intensifies. The apologies sound deeper. The promises feel specific. It can be so convincing that you question whether the entire painful pattern was just a misunderstanding. This phase often begins with nostalgia. They remind you of your early connection, the laughter, the chemistry, the dreams you once shared. They may say things like, "We were so good together," or "No one understands me the way you do." These statements are not random. They are carefully aimed at your emotional memory because memory can override logic. Then comes the accountability performance. They admit fault, sometimes dramatically. They may even reference the exact behaviors that hurt you. But the timing is important. This clarity rarely appears during the relationship when you are asking for change. It appears when you are walking away. The change is reactive, not reflective. There may be grand gestures, unexpected gifts, long messages, plans for the future. It feels urgent because it is. They sense loss, and this is an attempt to pull you back into the cycle before the door closes completely. What makes this tactic powerful is that it activates empathy and attachment at the same time. You may think maybe they finally understand, but sustainable change requires consistent action over time, not a surge of intensity under pressure. Love bombing at the end is not about intimacy. It is about retrieval. It is an attempt to restore the dynamic where your emotions orbit around their behavior. And if you step back and observe the pattern rather than the promise, you can see that the intensity itself is the signal. Threats, intimidation, or manufactured crises tend to emerge when charm and pity no longer work. This is the phase where the narcissist shifts from seductive tactics to fear-based control. When they realize you are no longer emotionally hooked, they may attempt to destabilize you through urgency, pressure, or implied consequences. The threats are not always overt. Sometimes they are subtle suggestions, comments about what could happen if you leave, hints that they might reveal secrets, withdraw financial support, or make custody more difficult. The message underneath is simple. Independence will cost you. They want your nervous system activated because anxiety can push you back in to engagement. In other cases, the intimidation is more direct. Raised voices, aggressive posturing, legal threats, sudden ultimatums. The goal is not resolution, it is dominance. If they can make you afraid, they regain a sense of power. Fear is a fast route back to control. Manufactured crises are another common maneuver. A sudden emergency appears the moment you create distance. Health scares, financial disasters, dramatic conflicts with others. You may notice a pattern where chaos erupts precisely when you step back. This pulls on your sense of responsibility and empathy. If you rush in to fix the crisis, the dynamic resets. What makes this phase so destabilizing is the speed and intensity. Everything feels urgent. You may feel pressured to respond immediately, to calm things down, to prevent escalation. That urgency is part of the design. When people are stressed, they revert to familiar patterns, and the familiar pattern was you stepping in. Understanding this tactic helps you slow down internally. Not every crisis requires your involvement. Not every threat requires a reaction. When you refuse to be pulled into fear-based exchanges, the intimidation loses its leverage. And without leverage, the attempt to control begins to collapse under its own aggression. Triangulation with new supply is one of the most calculated final moves because it targets comparison and insecurity. When a narcissist senses that you are no longer emotionally available, they often introduce a third person into the dynamic. This is not about love. It is about leverage. You may suddenly notice someone new appearing in their stories, their social media, or even in shared spaces. The timing is rarely accidental. It often coincides with your withdrawal. The message is indirect but sharp. I am desirable. I am wanted. I can replace you. They are attempting to provoke a reaction to awaken jealousy, competition, or self-doubt. Sometimes the triangulation is subtle. They mention how understanding this new person is, how easy the connection feels, how drama-free everything suddenly seems. Other times, it is blatant. Public displays of affection, rapid relationship announcements, photographs designed to be seen. The intensity is intentional because it is meant to pierce. What makes this tactic powerful is that it attacks your sense of uniqueness. During the relationship, you may have been told that you were special, irreplaceable, different from anyone else. Now the narrative flips. The new person is portrayed as everything you supposedly were not. This creates cognitive dissonance. You begin questioning your value. But the introduction of new supply is less about genuine connection and more about image repair and emotional provocation. They need an audience for their desirability. They need proof that they are still chosen. And if they can trigger you into reacting, reaching out, or defending yourself, they regain engagement. The healthiest response to triangulation is non-participation. Refusing to compete dismantles the game. When you do not step into comparison, the intended wound has nowhere to land and the performance loses its impact. The final discard designed to wound your identity is often the coldest and most calculated move of all. By this stage, the narcissist senses that regaining control may not be possible. Charm failed. Pity failed. Fear failed. Fear failed. So the objective shifts. If they cannot pull you back, they will try to leave a mark that lingers. This discard is not an ordinary breakup. It is engineered to destabilize your sense of self. They may suddenly become emotionally detached, speaking to you as if the entire relationship meant nothing. Affection disappears overnight. Shared memories are minimized or mocked. You may hear statements like, "You were never that important," or "I settled for you." The intention is not clarity, it is injury. Sometimes the discard includes a rapid replacement. A new partner is showcased with intensity, as if to demonstrate how easily you were swapped out. Other times, it is a brutal silence. You are treated as though you no longer exist. That erasure can feel deeply wounding because it invalidates the emotional investment you made. What makes this phase so painful is that it attacks identity rather than circumstance. You may begin questioning your worth, your attractiveness, your intelligence, your value as a partner. That internal questioning is precisely the residue they want to leave behind. If you doubt yourself, a part of you remains psychologically tethered. But the cruelty of the final discard reveals something important. It exposes the transactional nature of the dynamic. When you stopped providing validation, admiration, or emotional fuel, the connection lost its function for them. The sudden coldness is not proof that you lacked value. It is proof that the relationship was contingent on control. Understanding this helps you separate your identity from their behavior. Their final move is about preserving their ego, not defining your worth. Not defining your worth. The moment a narcissist reveals their dirtiest final move is not the moment you lost. It is the moment they realized they did. Every escalation, every smear, every tearful performance, every threat, every sudden romance, every cold discard, all of it points to one thing: the loss of control. These tactics are not random bursts of emotion. They are attempts to re-establish dominance over a system that used to work, and that system depended on your reaction. When you stopped reacting the way you once did, the entire structure began to crack. The extinction burst showed their panic. The smear campaign exposed their fragility. The victimhood revealed their need for sympathy as supply. The love bombing exposed desperation. The threats revealed fear. The triangulation exposed insecurity. And the final discard exposed the transactional nature of the connection. What feels like chaos is actually confirmation. Confirmation that your detachment was real. Confirmation that your boundaries had weight. Confirmation that they could no longer